When we're young, we have an amazing, positive outlook about how great life is going to be. But somewhere along the line, we forget to dream and end up settling. Join Up Dots features amazing people who refuse to give up and chose to go after their dreams. This is your blueprint for greatness. So here's your host, live from the back of his garden in the UK, David Ralph.
Yes, hello there everybody. Welcome to episode 44 of Join Up Dots. So, as the theme tune said, are you still going after those dreams, or have you settled? Because if you have settled, this is the place for you. This is where we will shake you out of that settlement, shake the mud off you, and push you on to a future which is bright and positive. So there's a chap on the other end of the line today who is really in a positive state of mind. And why shouldn't he be? Because he is creating a future that is all his own. He is a man who quite literally was born to be a voice on the mic. He's been in radio one way or another since getting the first job way back at the tender age of 14, when he quite simply hustled his way into the producer's chair. And that flexing of his hustle muscle appears to be an inherent part of his character, as since then he's worked and flourished in a myriad of positions, even spending some time working with a huge mouse as his boss. Yep, old Mickey paid his salary for a while, whilst he worked for Walt Disney Radio. I had no idea that Disney had a radio station. So what takes a natural talent behind the mic to step away from the radio business and create his own podcast and his own future with the Go For It Show, the latest motivational powerhouse to hit the ears of the world? Is it just a case of a guy who tired of the corporate gig and needed to spread his own wings? Or is it someone who has a passion for a subject that he felt wasn't being provided to the world? Well, let's find out as we start joining up dots with the one and only golden voice himself, Mr. Tysen Webb. How are you today, Tysen?
I'm good. I'm blushing a little bit, though. The golden voice, huh?
You have got a golden voice, haven't you? I've been talking to so many Americans over the last few weeks, and I don't know how you talk, because I've toured America extensively, and the listeners must be so bored with me saying this fact, but I'm quite proud of it, so I'm going to say this fact again, that I've done every state bar 2, Alaska and Hawaii, and they're all going to say, oh, tell me something different. But I can't do your voice. I try. If you listen to the intro, the intro guy, he is so up, he's so powerful, and I just sound like a kind of small girl trying to be a proper man. How do you do it? How do you get that passion and that deep, manly cowboyness?
It's practice. You just have to, you just have to be happy. That takes, a lot of it. Just smile when you talk. That's all. Smile when you talk and bring your energy up a little bit. We have a saying in radio. If you just speak normally, you're going to sound like you're just droning on. But if you increase it by about 75%, so you feel like you're a little over the top, that's about right where you need to be for broadcast.
It is a weird thing, that, isn't it? It is a weird thing.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't do that at home. You wouldn't go into the kitchen and go, right, who's going to have a cup of tea today? You just wouldn't do it.
No, because people would run away from you, right?
Yes.
Some DJs on the radio, it's funny, I've had some coworkers who tap their foot when they're on the air, or, they move their body in some way or another. You never know it from listening to them, but they're like in motion when they're talking, and that helps with the energy. So I don't know. I guess it's just 22 years of doing it.
Yeah, and I think it is genetics. It must be your surroundings as well, because you're based in Utah, aren't you?
Yeah, I am.
Salt Lake City, I believe.
It is gorgeous, although it's been a little cold. My listeners are sick of me saying that too. We've had a long winter, and I'm ready for the warmth, but it's starting to turn, so I'm excited. Yeah, but gorgeous. So you've been to Utah. What part of Utah have you been to?
The only part I remember is St. George. And I got really drunk. Funnily enough, literally every place that I've been to in America, I was a lot younger when I was doing this, and we used to do road trips, and so we would drive vast amounts of miles during the day, and then when we stopped, it was just head for the nearest bar. And I had a very bad experience in a bar in St. George when I parked the car to a hotel motel. And if anybody knows this place, it was about 10, 15 miles outside St. George. It was right on the road with a jacuzzi right on the road, which was really strange. It wasn't like a jacuzzi sort of surrounded round the back. It was like truckers were flying past us, and we were all sitting there in our trunks. And we went off to this bar in St. George, had a few too many Samuel Adams, I think it was. And we couldn't remember the name of the hotel. We had no idea. And all we were saying to people, there's a jacuzzi by the side of the road. And fortunately, this taxi driver managed to get us back. And we found ourselves. But it was a good night, but we sobered up very quickly.
That's a great story. That's funny. St. George is a pretty small town, and especially a few years ago, it was even smaller. So I didn't even know that there was a bar in St. George, to be honest with you.
It has a cinema, though, doesn't it? It has a movie theatre.
Yeah, it's very small, though.
I've been in that movie theatre.
Yeah, so have I, and it's not a great experience anymore. They're getting a new one, though. There's a big one that's being built down there, so they're very excited. Things like that get them excited in St. George.
The St. George population, I bet they're whooping and hollering. I bet they're all driving their cars at the moment going, they're talking about us. They're talking about us.
That's right, because, everybody in St. George listens to your show.
They
do.
Yeah, I have got a big following in St. George.
It's crazy how that happens, but
I will tip my hat to them and I will salute them from afar because they are my core listeners. I don't know how it's happened, but they're all sitting in their jacuzzi by the side of the road at the moment, listening to us.
And I was going to say, I think they have a jacuzzi with your name on it.
That would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would be.
Join up dots.
Now you make me want to have a meetup with, you, maybe Chris Cerrone, a bunch of people, Michael O'Neill in St. George, and just hang out with drinks in a jacuzzi. That sounds like fun.
I'm going to do that. I'm going to arrange it. And if any listeners out there want to join in, we will squeeze up even tighter. It's going to be marvelous. So what do you do in your day-to-day life? So obviously you're not spending all your time sitting in jacuzzis with other podcasters. So as I was saying in the introduction, you have been in radio for years and years and years, but at the moment you are creating your own future. You are a man behind the mic with your own show.
I am, yeah. So I started Go For It on March 20th, which is my birthday of this year. I had previously had another podcast called The Shrink Show that I did with a clinical psychologist, but we parted ways. He got really busy and had to take care of his family and do some other things. And so we shut the show down due to some legal stuff just because, so much of his content was out there. And if somebody consumed it and something happened, he could get in legal trouble if they tried to, say, I don't know. Anyway, we won't go there, but we shut it down. I started Go For It Show. And it's been great, man. I've had the best time with this podcast than I have in like the last 7 years of radio and the last podcast I did.
Why? What's the difference?
It's really reaching out and talking to people like you, talking to I've increased my friends by sevenfold, I think, in the last 7 or 8 weeks. Just the people that I'm reaching out to and who are reaching out to me in this community is outstanding. I'm talking with other great online entrepreneurs. I've had the chance to interview some really cool guests that I don't think I would even have the chance to interview on the radio, just because they're kind of in a different genre, right? So, and all of these people are doing great work online. They're helping people. They have great products out that help small businesses or coaching or whatever it might be. It's just fun to see people having a great time doing what they love and making a living at it, while helping people in some way, helping someone's pain point at the same time. And that's what really drew me into this world. I mean, I was really happy with my radio job and I've loved radio for so long, but I got to the point to where it started to feel like a job, right? I love being on the radio, but at the end of the day, I was just making somebody else's product better. And I was really doing nothing other than bringing in cash for that company. And so I decided that I wanted to do more like what these online entrepreneurs are doing and create some products that will benefit somebody in some way. In the meantime, continuing to do what I love, being in front of a microphone and giving out great content, but doing it in a different atmosphere and in this growing wave that I call podcasting, because I think that this is in its infancy right now. And so I'm just excited to get into this with everybody else and kind of ride that wave into the next few years.
Do you think it is in its infancy? Because when I started getting interested in this, it was August last year. And I remember people were saying, it's the Wild West at the moment, and everyone's finding their feet. But once you actually get into an environment, and this will happen to anyone out there, you kind of realise that, well, it seems like every single person's doing it. And it's like when you have a baby or you buy a new car, suddenly all you see is babies or cars that you're looking at all
true.
over the place. And so I've kind of almost had to mentally switch off from the competition out there, because otherwise I think I would go mad. But you still think it's in its infancy?
Well, I think it's a toddler at this point. I think it was, so I do. I think it was the Wild West maybe 4 years ago, but I think that now, like you said, there's a lot of people discovering podcasting and growing a podcast, that you're right, we have a lot of competition. But that is also because the way that technology is changing. In the last 5 years, there's been a lot of change in technology and a lot of innovation with online listening of some sort, and radio listening declining a little bit and more of it going online. So that, I think, is also a push for podcasting, because 5 or 6 years ago, nobody really knew what the word podcast was unless you kind of listened to them, or you were in radio or something like that, and were participating in one. But nowadays, that word is becoming more and more understood, and people are finding them easier, not only in iTunes, but on Stitcher, on TuneIn Radio, on almost every app that provides radio now provides podcasting, including iHeartRadio. So I think that as people discover that the content is out there, and that the content in a lot of these podcasts is much better than you can get on your local radio station or really anywhere else, people are finding time in their day to listen to podcasts.
Some of it, though, is rubbish, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. There's going to be rubbish everywhere, though, to be honest with you. Not everybody can put out really good content. And some people do it just to have fun. So I guess it depends on what you're wanting in a podcast. There's plenty of, as we just said, there's plenty of choices out there. So you can easily kind of swipe away the rubbish and enjoy the quality that's out there.
So what do you look for in a podcast? What excites you when you're, I keep on wanting to say when you're tuning through, but you don't, do you? When you click a mouse or something. And even at the beginning of the show, I always want to say, thanks for tuning in. But that's just stupid. So I try to hold back from that.
I guess in a way you are tuning in. You're tuning your ears in. You're not adjusting a radio frequency, but through a click of a mouse or through a touch of a.
I think you're being kind. I think you're being kind. It's a stupid phrase to say.
Yeah, but now I'm thinking, what would you call it?
Well, I don't know.
What
That's
would you
the
say?
Thing.
I've never thought about it until right now. Huh. Well, there you go.
Thanks for joining me.
That's what I say.
Thanks for clicking in.
Yeah, that sounds dumb too, though. Don't say that.
Well, now you're just being rude.
It's true, I am.
and I'm not going to, before you came on the show, I was sort of getting the introduction together, and I thought to myself, Tysen Webb, that sounds like the hardest man alive. If I was in a bar and somebody taps me on the shoulder and says, look, my mate Tysen Webb wants to fight you, it sounds tough, doesn't it? That's a tough name.
I don't know. I've never thought about it. Although Darth Vader is my hero, so maybe that's why it sounds tough. I don't know. Maybe I'm drawn to toughness because of that.
I think you're going to find a lot of things in this show that you've never thought of before.
Yeah, you're making me think. I love this. Oh, by the way, that was the best intro I've ever heard. That was like, you've done some homework, and that was amazing. Can you write my intros? Because I don't put that much work into my own intros.
Should I be honest with you, Mr. Webb?
Please do.
As I'm doing these shows, and I try to be honest with everyone, and I've said sort of numerous things about this, all I want to do is switch a mic on and talk to somebody. And I spend a lot of time researching. I spend far more time researching than I do actually recording the episodes. And part of me hates that. And going through LinkedIn and trying to find about pages and trying to find stuff that, can give me links and hooks to talk about. But I know at the bottom of my heart, it's the thing that will make the show work. You've got to do your research, haven't you?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's called what I call show prep, and that's a radio term, but you should be doing twice as much prep as you are on the air. So if you have an hour show, you should be doing at least 2 hours of prep. So you going out and finding out about your guests and maybe finding out something that somebody else doesn't will, like you said, could make the difference in your show, because so many of us go on so many other people's podcasts that it's likely that somebody listening to this podcast will also be listening to another podcast that I'm on, and they'll hear me or somebody else as the same guest, right? And nobody wants to hear the same interview. So you doing your due diligence in your prep will make sure that your interviews are a cut above the rest. So that is amazing. So good job.
Well, we have a mutual friend, a colleague called Mr. Michael O'Neill. We were talking about him just before we pressed record. And he's got a show called the Solopreneur Hour. And I know one of his pet hates is when he goes onto a show and somebody says, right, Michael, just spend the time telling us about yourself. And he hates that with a passion. And I don't know whether I have sucked in his hatred, but I now feel exactly the same way. I think if you are polite enough to come onto my show, you shouldn't have to be introducing yourself. It should be up to me to actually find the things for you to talk about.
Yeah. No, it's true. I think that Michael just really hates the cookie cutter podcasts, where the person on the other end can just, ask the same 10 questions to everybody and get, a show to put on. I don't think he values that. And, rightly so. I think that going back to doing your show prep and really trying to get into, the mind of your guest and pulling out some nuggets that are fresh is really important, especially with the competition that we were just speaking about as well. If you're just a cookie cutter podcast and you say, you ask the same 10 questions to, the same 30 people that everybody else is interviewing, then you're going to get lost in the shuffle.
So what is it from a show that you like when you are tuning through? That's when we went off on our little rant there for a moment. But yeah, when you're tuning in, what do you go for? What floats your boat?
Well, I mean, when I'm going through iTunes or some other place where podcasts are kept, obviously the art is going to draw me in, right? That's our first impression. Before we can even hit play, we are drawn in or not by your cover art. So I look at that and I really respect cover art that's good looking. So, but then when I hit play, the audio quality's got to be there because I'm an audiophile. It's what I do, right? And so if there's tinny audio or if somebody's popping their peas all over the place with their microphone, I mean, everybody's going to do that a little bit, but as long as the audio is good, then I can listen in and focus on the content. I'm one of those people, if the audio's bad, I don't care if the content is amazing. You could be telling me how to make $1 million in 10 days and it's guaranteed. If the audio's bad, I'm out because it's like nails on a chalkboard to me.
I think some of my early ones, maybe up to about episode 8, I didn't realise that I had network problems and my whole system was just about to crash, and it wasn't until a car drove into the exchange across the road and killed us that once they restored it, they realised that where we should have been getting 50 meg, we were on like 0.5. So some of my early ones weren't that good, and I look back on them and I think to myself, should I drop them? And I think no, because the people gave their time to support me when I was getting going, so it's got to be out there. But I do slightly cringe with the sort of the audio quality at the beginning, and it's another thing as well, isn't it? And for everybody out there who is thinking of doing this, and we're not going to spend the whole time talking about podcasting because God, that's going to be boring, but if you are spend time practicing on the microphone, because it is so important to get your mouth as close to it as possible, isn't it? You hear some people and it sounds like they're putting their head in a drawer. No, get your mouth on the microphone, I'm telling people.
Yeah, that's true. Well, it kind of depends on what microphone you have as well. So right now I'm about 8 to 9 inches away from my mic, but that's because I've got a high-end microphone and I'm also processing it through a mic processor. So that draws in my voice and does some compression to it and EQ to it, in a split second, and then sends it out to my board and then, through Skype. So it really does. If you have an unprocessed microphone, then yes, you really need to learn how to get up on the microphone and use it to be effective.
I'm almost swallowing my microphone. I'll be honest.
What kind of microphone do you have?
I'm going to have to look now. Bear with me a moment.
Okay.
I've got an ATR 2100, whatever that is. An ATR 2100. There's going to be all these techie guys out there screaming at me. How do you not know your microphone?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's an Audio Technica. It's a handheld. Yeah, okay. Yeah, and so that's one. I have something similar to this that when I take my show on the road that I use. And you have to really get that close to your mouth. So that's very good. Do you have a windscreen on yours?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect.
I have
That's
the whole
awesome.
car as well. I'm sitting in a car. I have the windscreen. Oh, you don't call it a windscreen, do you? I'm talking English language there and confused. I can hear you being confused. So if we go back in time,
Are you really sitting in a car? Hang on. Are you really sitting in a car?
Yeah, I'm actually driving at the moment.
No, you're not.
I'm driving through St. George, waving to all my fans. That's how they like it.
I thought you were in a garden in the back of your house.
Yeah, I am actually. I've got an office right at the back of the garden, which I built at great expense, really. So I
want you to send me pictures.
I will do, and I sit up here. And I've got my fridge, and I've got my kettle and my coffee, and no one comes near me. So it is the perfect place, really. And
yeah, it sounds like it.
It's a man cave, and I can just come up here and pretend that I'm working, but I am working, really. Yeah. So if we go back, you have worked since the early age, and I'm fascinated that at the age of 14, you managed to get into the producer's chair on a radio station. Now, how the hell did you do that?
Tenacity, persistence.
But you were 14. Why didn't they just go away, kid?
They did, and I wouldn't listen. I'm like a dog that wanted a piece of meat, and you shoo, and it runs away and comes right back. So here's what happened. And if you know me, which you don't, but now you're going to, I'm like a bulldog. When I have an idea and I really want to do something or accomplish something, I clench my teeth and I don't give up until it's done. So I really wanted to be on the radio. One day I was laying on my bed. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I was just listening to my favorite radio station. And the DJ came on. I don't even remember what he was talking about, but a light bulb in my head just went off, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's what I want to do. I love music. It fills me. I don't play any instruments or anything like that. I don't produce music, but I love music. It's always filled me and, made me happy or whatever. So I was like, that is awesome. I'm going to play music. I'm going to be a DJ for a radio station because I like people. I like music. So that works out. And so on Monday after school, I started calling all of my local radio stations. And they all said, hey, kid, you're 14. Come back when you're 18. Or better yet, come back when you're in college. And so I was bummed out. I was like, really? And I called them again a week later, and they said the same thing. And I really couldn't get past the receptionist. So I actually asked my mom to call a few of them, and she reluctantly did. And she got past the receptionist, but they told her the same thing. Look, there's really nothing we can do for your son. He's too young. That's great that he wants to be in radio. He's got his life ahead of him. Come back when you're at least an adult, when we can employ him or teach him something. And so I was bummed out. And one night I was hanging out with my friend. It was really late. It was 1 a.m. or something like that. And I was listening to the same radio station. And the DJ came on, and he sounded younger. And I was just, whatever. I called the radio station just to say hi and whatever and request a song. And I started up a conversation with this guy. His name was Brandon Young. That was his air name. And I told him all about what I was trying to do and what my age was. And he said, oh, well, I'm only 15 and a half. I'm like, what? You're not even 16 and you're on the radio. They told me that I couldn't do this. I said, how are you there? They said, well, my dad owns or knows the owner. They're business partners in another venture. And so I kind of have an in, and obviously I'm on in the middle of the night. I said, I don't care when I'm on. I want to be on the radio. And so the bulldog in me came through and said this, it confirmed that, yes, it is possible to be on the radio at a young age. And if he can do it, I can do it. So it just so happened that about a month or two later, one of my friends or an acquaintance who's a girl was what we call a radio, not junkie, a radio. Anyway, she called the radio station a lot. Radio groupie. That's what I'm trying to say. She called the radio station a lot, and she really got to be friends, quote unquote friends with the night DJ at one of the competing radio stations from the station that I listened to. And she was tasked one week to give the overhead announcements in our school. And so she wanted to record those and make them interesting. And so she called her friend at the radio station, asked if she could come up and use the equipment. He said yes for some reason. And then she called me and said, I know you want to be in radio. I need somebody to run the equipment for this is what we're doing. Come up and run the equipment. And I was like, sweet. So I did. My dad took us all up there. And while we were recording in the production room, which was right through a window from the on-air studio, my dad was in talking to the DJ while he was on the air, just passing time. And we were in the production room. And unbeknownst to me, they were listening in to our session, what we were doing, and saw that I really didn't need any help. I was able to run the equipment just fine. I was actually directing some of the kids to say, their parts in a different way. And I put it on a cassette. And when we were all ready to go, I went in and said, thank you. And said, this has been a dream come true. I've always wanted to be in radio. And, I've been told by even this station to come back when I'm in 18. So I said, I'll see you when I'm 18. And he said, well, you don't have to wait that long. Why don't you be my producer? And right then the door opened, and I was a producer for, this guy who was on from 7 to midnight at night. It was really cool.
Is that not, I mean this with the greatest respect. Isn't that a bit strange that an adult is saying to a child, come and work with me during the night?
Yeah, probably. But he'd been talking to my dad, and he wasn't that old. I mean, at the time, he was probably only 24, maybe 22. He was pretty young himself. He was actually the son of the program director, who's the main manager of the radio station. So he too had an in, but he had been doing it for about 4 years at that point.
So what did you learn in those formative years when you first got in there? Obviously, you are inherent hustle muscler. You really are. you that can't be trained, can it? You can develop it. I've started developing my hustle muscle, and it's kind of half fear and half knowing that I've got to do it, otherwise I'm never going to get this off the ground. So there's a sort of combination there, but it's not in me. It's in you, isn't it? It's got to have been in you for that at that age to be so ballsy that you went for it.
Yeah, I think so. But my hustle muscle is funny. It only flexes when I have blinders on. So it only really works when I really want to do what I set out to do. So as a kid, or even now, if I'm tasked with a chore that I really don't want to do, my hustle muscle is feeble and weak. It doesn't work. But if it's something that I have a great desire to get done, or if it's learning something new that I'm excited about, then I will do anything and everything in my power to learn that thing or to do that thing. So, yeah, I mean, radio is what I wanted to do. It was solidified when I went up that night and used the equipment. I would listen through the headphones to the DJ on the air and hear the processing in the radio station. And I was just like, oh my gosh, it made me so happy I trembled. It was like euphoric. It was so exciting to me. And so every time I showed up, I was ready to learn everything, and I just sucked it all in. They started teaching me everything about how the radio station works, everything about, anything to do with the radio station. And then I would ask questions above that. I mean, I was asking engineering questions at, 15 years old to the head engineer of the radio station. And he's like, okay, if you really want to know how the radio signal gets from the station to the tower and transmits out, I'll tell you, and I can draw a diagram. And I loved it. Everything about the business I absolutely loved. So I just learned, and I sucked it in like a sponge. And it wasn't very long until I was being asked to run the board. So when he was the night jock, his name was Gary Michaels. Just a week or two into it, he had me run the radio station. He's like, I'm going to go to 7-Eleven, which is a convenience store where he could go get a drink. It was about 10 minutes away. And he's like, do a 3-song set. In 15 minutes, I'll be back, and just make sure the station stays on the air. And so I would do stuff like that, Or when he was even still in studio, he would be like, all right, you're running the station for the next 10 minutes. Don't screw it up, So.
And what type of music did you play? What year was this?
This was really early 90s, about 91, 92, somewhere in there. And it was a top 40 radio station.
So I'm trying to think. So Madonna, you would have been playing Madonna. You would have been playing probably a bit of Aerosmith.
No, not Aerosmith. That's more rock. So it would be like Madonna. Back then, it'd be like SWV, Bobby Brown. I can't even remember the artist back there. Just Google pop music in 1992.
Because in the United Kingdom, we don't really have themed radio stations. They're very much, when you drive through America, you get like rock, and then you get country, and you get all these ones that only play that type of music. In the United Kingdom, we don't really have that, and we just have a sort of smorgasbord of music, and you kind of choose your favourite radio stations. That some have more kind of variety than others, but it's a variety thing that they go for over here. So you might hear like the Eagles, and then next minute Miley Cyrus, and then the next minute Led Zeppelin and all that kind of stuff, which is quite eclectic.
Yeah, it's probably more true to how people how people listen to radio than we do it in the US, because I think that most people listen to many genres of music, and so your way of doing it sounds frankly better than the way we do it, because each one of us here have 3 or 4 radio stations that we like, just because they all play a specific genre of music. So to get Miley Cyrus and Aerosmith, you'd have to go to 2 different radio stations.
Do you know what annoys me, Mr. Webb, about America? And there's not many things, I'll be honest. I love the place, passionately love the place. My wife always says if I wasn't born in this country, I would be American. But the thing that annoys me, and I'm going to tell you because no one else is listening to this, is if you are driving through America, you have to tune your radio every 500 yards. Now, I can drive from one end of the United Kingdom to the other and stay with the same radio station, never have to touch my dial once. But it doesn't work like that in America, does it? The signal is horrendously rubbish.
Well, it's not the technology. It's that the way that each city has its own radio stations. So instead of, like you said, the United Kingdom, we could have, if we wanted to here, I'm sure one state could have its own, 3 or 4 radio stations that are just state broadcasted. But each city in every city in every state here in America, we all have our different radio stations. There's like hundreds of thousands of them here. It's crazy. In fact, here in Salt Lake City, there are more radio stations per capita here in Salt Lake City than anywhere else in the United States. There are over 63 signals just in my city, which is ridiculous.
It's ridiculous that you know these kind of facts. You know that.
Well, I'm in radio. It's my job to know them. Because I want to buy 30 of them and turn them off.
Well, what I was thinking, you are there, I'm here, and there must be thousands, there must be millions of people in America driving along, crashing because they're having to change their dial. Now,
it's not as often as you think.
It's every 500 yards, I promise you. And it's just when a good song comes on and you think, I love this song, and off it goes. So what we should do, we should just create a radio station on, I don't know how we're going to do it, I'm thinking off the top of my head, but that stays with the whole country. Think of the audience that we could get, Tysen.
Yeah, I think they're trying to do that with satellite radio, honestly.
I don't care about those things. This is an idea that I'm coming.
Are we going to use the terrestrial signals to get it done?
I don't understand what that means. All I know is there's an audience out there that must be crying out to listen to an American golden voice angel and some girl from the United Kingdom.
Yeah, you can get that at goforishow.com. That's what we should do, is just put it online, and then you never have to change the station. It's just a stream. You're always connected to a cell service somewhere.
Well, I think that you are going to make such a huge success out of this, because there's a phrase that keeps on coming into my head every time you say a word, and it's from my old friend Steve Jobs that my whole theme is based around, and it's the only way to do great work is to love what you do. Have you ever heard those words before?
Oh, it's funny that you just quoted my favorite quote of all time.
It's uncanny what you can do off air, isn't it?
I know, right? Yes, that is amazing, and I live by those words. Even before he said them, when he said them, they totally resonated with me because that's how I live my life, and I've really been lucky to do what I want to do. The radio is the only job, full-time job I've ever had, and I love it to death. And so I've been very fortunate to work in an industry that I love, and not only that, work at the formats that I love and play the genre of music that I love to play, and now transferring my knowledge online. I'm giddy again, like a little schoolboy again, just excited at the prospects of taking what I know and going online with it, and not only having the bottom line as our only goal, right, to make money, but now I get to put out content that I hope will change somebody somehow, make them feel good about themselves, make them take that step into the dark to live their dream and to, as my show says, to go for it. That's exactly what I want to have happen. That is fulfilling, and that's why I'm kind of going online with my show.
Well, I think just hearing you talk, you have a passion for it, which comes out, doesn't it? And if there are people listening out there, and I keep on saying this in my show, but you don't have to be in a situation that you don't like. Now, I've worked in jobs for years and years and years when I was just going for the money, and some of them were great jobs and some of them weren't so great, but still they were paying the money. But now I've quit that and I'm doing my own thing, I kind of look back and I think, why did I stay there for so long?
Yeah.
It's not as scary as you think. You don't actually have to just cling to a pay packet like it's the only job out there. You've got options. You can leave, go to another job. You could go up to your manager and say, I don't like this job. Can I have another one in the office, and sort of reignite yourself? Or with the online world, you have got opportunities that you just wouldn't have had 5 or 10 years ago.
Absolutely. It's funny you bring that up because you hear so many entrepreneurs or anybody who's really online now, their about page or their story is, I got fired, or I just didn't love my job, or I just needed a change in my life. I'm kicking myself right now for not starting 2.5 years ago when I wanted to, because I loved my job, right? I was on the air. I was the program director of a radio station, my favorite radio station in Utah. I was the boss, and directing talent, directing how it sounded on the air. I was living my dream, but for some reason, it felt empty to me. I mean, I loved being on the air, but I still kind of felt empty, and I wondered every night why that was happening. And I realized not too long ago that it's because I really had this push 2.5 years ago to go online, to take my talents online, and to start what I'm doing now. And since then, a lot of people have shown up in the space that I wanted to be in, right? This podcasting space, but not only the space, but exactly how I'm running my podcast as well, and the talents that I want to teach people. So I'm kind of behind the ball where it comes from. If I would have started 2.5 years ago when I had that first push, I would have been so much more ahead. And I really feel like this is my future. So it's kind of funny that you don't have to be in a position to where you hate your job or you think you need to change. And that's why I really have taken to heart Steve's quote when he says, follow your heart. And I wasn't doing that. I thought I was, but I knew inside that I wasn't. And now I've kind of been, able to rectify that course, and I'm much happier now.
You found your path. And as Steve Jobs always says, or Steve Jobs even, I don't know who Steve Jobs is. Steve Jobs, the only way you can find that path is actually by looking back and joining up the dots, which would be a great name for a show. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to play those words now. And as I say to all the guests, at the end of it, I'm going to ask you a few questions about when you first heard it, whether it's relevant, and your general opinion on these quite fantastically simple but powerful words of Steve Jobs. Here we go.
Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path. And that will make all the difference.
Well,
I love those words.
Well, you don't seem a man who lacks confidence, and it seems to me that your path was pretty etched out from such an early age. So what do those words mean to you?
Really? I mean, I don't know if they were etched out at an early age, because looking back, I can see exactly what Steve was talking about. And I'm at a fork in the road right now in my life. And I think I'm really excited, but also really almost terrified of what's ahead, because I'm kind of stepping into the darkness. I look back in my life and I look at all of the hardships I went through in radio, what I've, when it kind of became a job, less than excitement every day, some of the hardships I went through, but what I learned, and all the times that I spent crafting different skills, whether it be on the air, whether it be voiceover, whether it be production, which is assembling audio for the radio station, and directing talent, and all of these things that I've done over the last 22 years have kind of come to a head right now that I'm going online, and it's provided me with a lot of skills and a lot of ability to not only interview and make the show that I want, but then on the side, be able to help other people get to where I am now, right? Help other people to start a show, to direct them in being confident on the air, in directing them in so many ways. It's amazing all of the skills that I've learned over the past 22 years are being fulfilled now. I'm able to use them, and I feel like if I would have gotten out of radio before now, I would be lacking in a lot of things, and especially in a lot of life lessons. I've learned a lot being in the entertainment industry and crafting my skill amongst these powerhouses that surround me.
Did those powerhouses, I've got two questions. The first one's just popped into my head. So did those powerhouses frighten you when you came into their world? Were they so beyond what your confidence could have provided at that time, or were they the ignition to your inner confidence? When you saw them, you thought, actually, these are just normal guys, normal ladies, they are just ahead of the curve?
Both, because I looked up to them, and I still do. There's many people I look up to in my industry, especially in voiceover. Voiceover is a lot different than radio. Somebody untrained in voiceover can really make a good living in radio, especially music radio, when you only have to talk for a few seconds, every time you talk. But my biggest fear and my biggest education really came when I started becoming a voiceover artist and going into auditions and hearing the caliber of quality, just the quality of these actors, and the way that they can interpret the scripts, and the way that they pull the words off and make them their own and make it believable, instead of just reading it with the proper inflection. These were true actors and actresses that I stepped into their world, and I felt so small, and there are still times that I do. Now, I'm much further ahead than I was, but there's always something to learn. There's always something to improve upon. And so I'm at the point now where I'm comfortable with my talent, and I look at those icons as inspiration.
So you're at the fork at the road now, and you were saying that you're excited and terrified. Now, I am terrified on I'm terrified on a minute-by-minute basis at the moment. I've said this numerous times. When I start recording, am I going to connect with this person? Am I going to be able to think of things? Are people going to listen? It just goes on and on and on, so I try not to think about it. It's one of those things that can stop you in your tracks. How do you overcome that?
You just have to push on and be confident in yourself. I've accomplished a lot in my life. I know that I have a good skill set, and I know that I can accomplish anything I put my mind to. I think anybody can. It doesn't matter what you have to learn. If you want to accomplish something, you'll find a way to do it. So I kind of take that. I look at my past and I think, I was the youngest DJ in Utah for 2 years. I was on the radio, cracked the mic for the first time at 15 years old, only 9 months after I wanted to, I had the idea. 9 months after I had the idea that I wanted to be on the air, I was on the air at a major market radio station. That is unheard of. That's my first accomplishment. And ever since then, I've been able to reach the goals that I really put out for myself that I want to reach. So I know that I have the ability, the inherent willpower and ability to learn anything. And so going forward into this new online world and crafting, kind of forging ahead here, it might be scary, but it's also exciting at the same time. Does that make sense?
It makes it makes total sense. Yeah.
Yeah. You only have to go, you have a little bit of light and maybe it's 100 yards ahead of you. But as you move forward, that light is always 100 yards ahead of you, right? So, it's like driving your car at night across the United States. You can drive your car at night because you've got headlights and they're only so far ahead of you, 30, 40 feet, but
got no radio.
They're always 30 or 40 feet ahead of you, right? So as you continue to move forward, things open up. You're still able to see part of the road and at least you can make a decision. So I'm comforted in that even though the technology is changing and what we're delving in here online, is new, but it's also really exciting for me. I feel like I said before, that I'm that 14-and-a-half-year-old kid again in the radio station for the first time, because now, I've got the podcasting done. I can broadcast. I know how to put the equipment together. I know how to make it sound good. I can interview people. The things that I don't know so well are, exactly how to get as many downloads as I can online, how to market exactly. So it's like trial and error in that respect, but every day I learn something, and every day, every week I have some kind of a cool success. So
what's astonished me right from the very word go is how helpful people are that shouldn't, or in my early day mind, they wouldn't have helped me. I would think that if I asked for help, and I can remember the very first email that I sent out to do this show, and it was actually to Elton John. And I sent it to Sir Elton because I knew in my heart of heart he wasn't going to respond. And it's a weird thing to say that. And the only thing that I can think of why I did that, it made me realise that I could type something out and have the courage to press go. Now, the second one I did, the bloke came back to me instantly and went, yeah, great, I'll be on the show. And I was thinking, oh my God, I haven't even got a show. I haven't got a microphone. I haven't got anything. Oh, this is becoming real and I'm not ready for it to be real. Now I look back on that and I think that's the way to go, isn't it? You've got to do the action and then become ready for it.
Exactly. You just got to go for it, right? You just got to step forward and make the intention, put it out there and say, I'm going to do this no matter what, and then start working towards it. And then when you get those yeses and those doors start to open, then you're like you said, oh my gosh, now I've actually got to get serious about this and get it all in line and get it up. And so you did that, and it's fantastic. So many of us are afraid to do that. And so we stay where it's safe and we don't press forward. We're sitting right by the edge and we don't want to, walk over that line. But that's what makes all the difference. When you take that first step, then you're well on your way, right? You can't look back after that.
Why do you think people like safety so much? I heard a phrase once, and I've mentioned this in a couple of shows. And the thing about doing a daily show is you do repeat yourself a lot. I can't help it. And even though I've got devil and angel on my shoulder, and the angel's going, no, it's all right to say it, David. And the devil's going, oh, God, they're going to get sick of this. You've said it 200 times. But I saw this phrase, and it was a professor. And it was something like, if you plant a tree in the ground, the tree is going to become the biggest that tree can possibly become. If you put a cheetah on the ground, that cheetah will run as fast as a cheetah can possibly run. You put a human, they're going to keep themselves in the smallest position they possibly can. So
isn't that interesting?
It's really interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, there is so much in our life. I really wonder if current modern day man is different than we were maybe 200 years ago or 400 years ago. I wonder if those people were more adventurous or more risk taking. I would imagine they would have to be, just to stay alive and to accomplish what they would have to do just to, put a roof over their head and eat every night. I would imagine they would have to take many more risks than we are willing to take today. I think that we are stuck in safety here because there's so much riding on our success. And there's so many people looking at us, and especially with the internet and social media, we're afraid to fail, because if we think that we fail, then we think that we're no good. But the thing is that you're going to fail many times before you succeed. And it's the failures that teach you, and it's the failures that build confidence and build, I don't know if ego is the right word, but, confidence and teach us lessons. If we didn't fail, we wouldn't learn anything, and we would be lazy sloths. But I think that it's that fear of failure that keeps us kind of in. We have to push ourselves out to a limit. And in life, that limit might be getting a job, making just enough money to get by, maybe to support our family or to support ourselves, getting just enough money to buy a car and a place to live and some food to eat. And outside of that, everything else is, I don't want to say frivolous, it's not the right word, but everything else is extra, I guess. And some people, I think, are just satisfied to stay in that bubble, to not go beyond that, because they're not sure if they have what it takes to go beyond that. But I'm here to say I believe everybody on this planet has much more potential to shine than we give ourselves the credit for. And I think that we, given a circumstance or an opportunity, would surprise ourselves in many, many ways. I think that we all have something that we can give back to the world. And I think that we do ourselves in the world not a disfavor. What's the word? Anyway, thank you. That's exactly what I'm thinking of. I don't think disfavor is even a word. A disservice when we don't try. I think that if you look at a lot of the successful entrepreneurs, it's funny that a lot of them have a single thread that is a childhood with some kind of problem with like maybe an immigration and poverty, maybe sickness, maybe they lost parents. It's almost like the Batman syndrome, something tragic happened as a child that pushed them into this mode of, well, it's fly or die. And so they fly and they succeed and they're fantastic. Not all of us have that opportunity. And I think that if we don't push ourselves beyond our limits or create that opportunity for ourselves and just try it, we'll never find out what we're capable of. And then, I think the world could be a much, much better place if we all push ourselves just a little further. Because it's like running a marathon. Once you push yourself a little further and a little further and a little further, and then you realize that you can run a marathon, then the world's the limit. Then it's like, oh my gosh, I can do this. And now what else can I do? And you explore that. But not trying is such a disservice to yourself and to everybody around you, really.
Well, when I was doing the 9-to-5 job, I was earning a decent salary, I have to be honest. And at the end of my 9-to-5 job, when I'd lost my mojo and I just kind of felt like I was going through the motions, it was actually a very good salary for what I was providing. And I'll be honest now, I don't work there anymore, so what are they going to do? I was kind of killing time more than actually producing. When I quit, I took a hell of a whack on my salary, really did, to the point that I couldn't pay my bills. And my wife was kind of like, oh, what the hell are we going to do, And I said, look, just trust me. Just trust me. I don't know what I'm going to do. I really don't know what I'm going to do, but I will try something. Well, I could develop websites, and I'm quite good at doing websites. And so I said, that's what I will do. I will develop websites for people, and I'll bring my own income in. After doing the first one for someone, I wanted to smash my head into the desk, and I thought, I can't do this for the rest of my life. I've got to do something that ties into what you were saying. The only way to do great work is to love what you do. And I didn't know those words, but I've written them down. They're in front of me again. But that is how I felt. And I knew that I had to do something that channeled my passions. And ultimately, if I channel my passions well enough and I progress and I develop an audience, then the monetary problems will take care of themselves. And, you know, for all the listeners out there, you know, I've got a show now and it's going daily and it's going great guns. I'm still poor. I am nowhere near what I was before, but God, I'm still glad that I did that, because I know that the only way can possibly be up, because I've burnt my bridges. Does that make sense, Tysen?
Absolutely. Yeah. And see, that's the scary thing that most people aren't willing to do. That is where I think a lot of us say, no, that's too risky. It's too uncomfortable. I'm not willing to do it. And that's how we stay in our, you know, unhappy situations. So taking action and being a little uncomfortable for a while. Listen, I'm sure your show is going to do fantastic. It's one of the best podcasts I've ever heard. I love your intros and your segues. I love that they are sung. They're like jingles, and it really sounds like your personality. And so many people are going to glom onto that and really enjoy your show. But not only that, find something to improve themselves through your show, and then things will start to happen. Right? It's the more you give back, you know, things are bound to start coming back your way. So I've no doubt that you'll be just fine, my friend.
Thank you. I really do appreciate that, because I am still in scary mode. I really am. And I am pushing and pushing and pushing. And I'm doing exactly what you said. And if I took you back to that night when you phoned the radio station and the 15-and-a-half-year-old kid picked up the phone or whatever, and you thought, if he could do it, then I could do it. That's exactly the words that I cling to every single day. I listen to people on the radio. I listen to people doing podcasts. I listen to people in all walks of life. And I think to myself, I can do that. If they can do it, I can do it. Because none of them, and this goes out to you listeners, every single one of you, not one of the people that you're listening to now, not myself, not Tysen, not Pat Flynn, not Richard Branson, were born with superpowers. They have just worked extremely hard, made more mistakes than they've had successes, and fine-tuned skills to enough that they take control of their own future.
Amen, brother. I totally agree.
I'm becoming quite profound. I don't know what's come over me.
I can't wait to hear a solo show. I want to hear more of that. Keep on going.
Yeah, I'm gonna praise Jesus and all those kind of things. That's what we should do. No, I'm not going to get involved in that in any shape or form. But I am going to sort of segue nicely onto our very last part of the show, which is the Sermon on the Mic. And this is the part when I send you back in time, as I always say, like a young Marty McFly. And yet you're not a million miles away from Michael J. Fox. I'm looking at a picture of you at the moment. And if you did walk into a room and you saw the young Tysen and you sat down and you gave them words of advice, what age Tysen would you choose and what words would you say? So I'm going to play the music, and when it fades out, I'm going to remain totally quiet, because this is all you. You're on the mic, the Sermon on the Mic.
Here we go with the best bit of the show, the Sermon on the Mic. The Sermon on the Mic.
All right, young Tysen, come over here and sit down. Let's talk. You are so excited about your future right now. It seems like you're on top of the world and you've reached the pinnacle of what you can accomplish in your life. You're in radio. You just started. You're on the air, and you're loving life. You've lived your dream. But let me tell you, things change. Technology is going to change. A guy named Steve Jobs is going to come and totally obliterate one industry and start a new one. And that is going to disrupt your industry in radio. Now, before that happens, there's going to be hard times. There's going to be hard times after that. But the hard times are good. They teach you. And you're going to be asked to do things that are against your morale, things that you think that you should do to get further in life and to get further in your career, but things that you know go against your soul and your values. And I just want to tell you to stay true to your values, because as you do that, the right people take notice and they respect you for that. And then doors start to open. Opportunities that you'd never dreamt of will start coming your way if you take this advice. And make sure that as you go on in life, you help people, give more than you receive. That way, you will be fulfilled, you'll be happy in your life, and more doors will even open because of that. It's amazing. The more you give, the more you actually get back. And then help people along the way. Help them build up other people. Even if you're down, even if you feel like the world is against you, praise people for what they do and help build everybody around you. And if you do this, I promise you, you'll be successful.
I love those words. And I've loved this show because I think we've done an amazing job here, but we didn't spend 50 minutes going, what's your favorite microphone? And and I think
I agree, my friend. This has been fantastic.
Could have easily got into that. So, Tysen, thank you so much for spending time with us today, joining up those dots. And please come back again when you have more dots to join up, because I really believe that the only way to build our future is by connecting our past and, of course, developing our audience in St. George, Utah.
There you go. Let's get down to St. George soon enough and chill in a hot tub.
That's what we're going to do. I've got my trunks on already.
David, you're awesome. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks very much, mate. See you later.
David doesn't want you to become a faded version of the brilliant self you were once to become. So he's put together an amazing guide for you called the 8 Pieces of Advice that every successful entrepreneur practices, including the 2 that changed his life. Head over to joinupdots.com to download this amazing guide for free, and we'll see you tomorrow on Join Up Dots.